Have you ever wondered how much a person is worth, not in spirit, not in dreams or ideals? Cash. Cold, hard cash. Enough coins to make a crowd cheer, enough dollars to strip a young man of his dignity right there in the middle of a dusty town square. On a scorching summer morning in Deadwood Junction, 19-year-old Tobias McCritty learned that answer the hard way. They sold him like livestock. The auctioneer hollered strong back. Good teeth never touched a woman. The crowd roared with laughter like hungry wolves circling prey. Every bid was another nail in the coffin of Tobias's freedom. No one asked what kind of boy he was. No one cared what dreams he had. They didn't see a person. They saw 7 years of cheap labor. But then, she spoke. A woman in a faded brown dress, voice like granite, eyes that had seen war and survived it. $200. Double the last offer. The crowd fell dead silent. No one knew who she was. No one understood what she wanted. Tobias just knew one thing. She had saved him from being owned by Magnus Grundy, a rancher so cruel men whispered his name like a curse. But what Tobias didn't know was that she hadn't just bought his labor. She'd bought something else, something far deeper, far more dangerous. You'll meet a boy sold like cattle, a woman haunted by a son she lost, and a ranch with walls that don't just hold cattle but whispers of the dead. And I need to ask you something. If you were Tobias, what would you do? Stay and comfort a grieving mother or leave and fight for your own truth? Don't answer yet. Watch till the end, because the choice Tobias makes might just be the choice you'd make too. Let's begin, because this is the kind of story you won't walk away from. The auction block stood in the town square like a wooden coffin, and Tobias McCritty, just 19, stood atop it like a man already buried. His hands were tied. His name had been stripped from the whispers in the crowd. He was no longer a son, a neighbor, a boy with hopes. He was just a price tag. The sun hadn't even reached its peak, but sweat already clung to Tobias's back like shame. Below him, townsfolk gathered not to mourn, not to protest, but to watch. Their faces were tight with cruel curiosity. Some held coins, others just stood with folded arms, eager to see another man's dignity peeled off one layer at a time. He heard the auctioneer's voice, big, boastful, booming, describe him like livestock. Strong back. Good teeth. 7 years of labor, folks. 7 years of sweat and silence. The crowd laughed. Some jeered. One man spat on the ground and called out a number, $50. Tobias looked down, not to meet the man's eyes. He wouldn't give him that, but because he couldn't bear to look at the world anymore. He thought of his father buried in a drunkard's grave just outside town limits. The man had gambled away everything, land, pride, even Tobias's name, and now Tobias was paying the final debt. Not in coin, but in years. 7 years. To whoever could offer the highest bid. 70, 80, 90. Each number struck like a lash across his back. He kept his head up, but inside something wilted. Then came the voice that silenced everything. 200. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The crowd turned. Tobias did too. There she stood at the edge of the gathering like stone weathered by time. A woman in a plain brown dress and boots caked with trail dust. Her hair was gray, pulled tight behind her head. Her expression unreadable. But her eyes, they didn't leer like the others. They didn't hunger. They saw. Tobias didn't know her name, didn't know her story. But in that moment she looked less like a bidder and more like a force of nature. A hush swept over the square. The auctioneer stammered. The other bidders backed off. Sold. For $200. And just like that, Tobias was no longer bound to Grundy or any of the townsfolk who saw him as a tool. He belonged to her now, but he wasn't sure if that was better or just a different kind of cage. She walked toward him, firm and steady, and as she reached the platform, she asked only one question. "Can you ride?" He nodded, unsure if his voice would work. "Good," she said, eyes narrowing, "because we've got a long road ahead of us." And without another word, she turned. Tobias followed, feet dragging, heart racing. He had escaped a sentence, but not his story. Not yet. And as the wagon wheels creaked into motion, Tobias realized this was no rescue. It was a beginning of something larger, something buried, something waiting to surface out on the edges of Martha Caldwell's land. The trail out of Deadwood Junction stretched flat and dusty, unraveling across the prairie like an old scar. The wagon creaked beneath them, pulled by a pair of tired horses that seemed to know the road better than their passengers. Tobias sat on the wooden bench beside her, this stranger who'd spent more money on him than most folks earned in a year. Her hands gripped the reins with quiet strength. Her jaw was set. Her eyes never left the horizon. He didn't speak, not at first. The silence between them was thick, not uncomfortable, but heavy, like sitting beside someone in mourning. He stole glances at her face, trying to piece together what kind of woman did something like this. Bought a stranger, outbid the whole town, then walked away without so much as a question. She was older than she'd seemed from afar, lines etched deep around her mouth, and eyes not from vanity, but from years that hadn't been kind. Her clothes were plain practical, her presence solid as bedrock. But it was her eyes that held him most. They weren't cruel, they weren't soft. They were tired. Not the kind of tired you sleep off, but the kind that settles in your bones when you've been carrying sorrow too long. After a while, he found his voice. "Ma'am," he said, his words barely above the wagon's creak. "Why'd you bid on me?" She didn't answer right away, just gave a small click of her tongue to guide the horses through a rut. Then, after a long pause, "Some questions don't come with easy answers, boy." He nodded, but inside the question stayed. $200, he pressed gently. "You could have bought cattle, tools, land." "I could have," she said. Silence again. Tobias looked ahead, the horizon blurring in the heat. "You don't even know me. I know enough." That was all she said. But there was a tremor in her voice, a soft crack that hadn't been there before. She drew in a breath, sharp like someone bracing for pain. "I know you weren't meant to end up at Magnus Grundy's ranch. And I know 7 years of hard labor is a long time to serve someone who'd treat you like a beast." Tobias swallowed. The rumors about Grundy had traveled further than he'd thought. "So you saved me?" "No," she said. And for the first time she looked at him. Her eyes up close were gray, not cold, but cloudy like a storm about to break. "I didn't save you. I bought you." There's a difference. The words sat between them bitter and true. But she added, "I ain't planning to break you. Only hoping you're strong enough to stay in one piece." He turned to study her, but she'd already looked away. Her posture stiffened again. Whatever she was willing to share for now was done. The sun dipped lower behind them, casting long shadows across the prairie. And as the first outline of a ranch house appeared far ahead, tucked in the folds of a valley, Tobias sensed that this woman, this Martha Caldwell, wasn't just carrying money or power. She was carrying ghosts. And as the horses drew closer to the ranch, Tobias had a thought he couldn't shake sometimes. The people who save you are the ones who need saving most. The Caldwell Ranch rose from the valley floor like a secret too proud to be forgotten. From a distance, it looked like a dream, green pastures shimmering beneath the late afternoon sun, sturdy barns standing against the wind, a 2-story house that whispered of good years and hard work. But as the wagon creaked through the front gate, Tobias felt something he couldn't quite name. Not fear, not awe, something colder, like stepping into a room just after someone has left it. The place was quiet, too quiet. There were no ranch hands shouting to one another across the field. No clanging tools, no barking dogs, no children's laughter. Just the wheels crunching over packed earth and the soft huff of horses. For a ranch that size, it should have been buzzing with life. Instead, it felt like it was holding its breath. Martha said nothing. She didn't explain the silence. She didn't glance at the empty bunkhouse or the open barn doors swaying gently in the breeze. She just drove the wagon to the side of the house, pulled the brake, and climbed down. Tobias followed, legs stiff from the ride. The porch creaked beneath his boots. The wood felt old-weathered, like it remembered too much. At the door, she paused, rested her hand on the handle, then turned to him, voice steady, but edged with something hard. "Before we step inside, there's one rule you need to understand." He waited. This ranch runs on respect and hard work. You give both, you'll be treated fair. But if you cause trouble, if you lie, steal, or run," her gaze met his. Cold, measured. "Well, let's just say Magnus Grundy won't be the worst thing you've ever known." Tobias nodded, throat dry. "Yes, ma'am." She opened the door. The house inside was surprisingly warm. Sunlight filtered through tall windows. The floors were polished wood furniture, simple but cared for. The scent of fresh bread lingered, and somewhere a kettle whistled softly. But there was no laughter, no footfalls above, no second voices drifting down a hallway. It felt like a home and a hollow all at once. As they climbed the stairs, Tobias noticed something that made his stomach twist. Along the hallway walls were portraits, family portraits, but every single one had been scratched through. Eyes gouged out, smiles torn apart, whole faces destroyed by deep, deliberate strokes. He paused at one drawn to it and stared. A boy not much older than himself once smiled from that canvas. Now only a faint outline remained. A ghost in oil and cloth. He didn't ask. Not yet. Something told him those answers wouldn't come easy. His room was small but clean. A bed, a basin, a window looking out to the hills. He washed his face and sat at the edge of the bed, the silence pressing against him. He had escaped the cruelty of a crowd, escaped being sold to a man who'd worked boys to the bone. But here, in this big house filled with echoes, Tobias felt something just as heavy. Aloneness. Not his own, hers. And as the dinner bell rang from below and he made his way to the kitchen, Tobias couldn't help but wonder if this was a rescue. Why did it feel so much like exile? The kitchen smelled of coffee stew and something simpler, something like permanence. Tobias sat at a table polished smooth by years of elbows and meals and memories. Martha stood at the stove ladling thick beef stew into 2 bowls. She moved like someone who had done this 1,000 times. Alone, she set his bowl in front of him without a word, then poured 2 mugs of coffee. Her sleeves were rolled to the elbow, revealing forearms lined with muscle and sunburn earned, not inherited. They ate in silence. The stew was rich. The bread was warm. The coffee was strong enough to wake the dead. But Tobias barely tasted any of it. The knots in his stomach hadn't loosened since the moment he stepped onto her land. After a while, Martha spoke flat, unceremonious. "You did decent work on that fence?" He looked up, surprised. "Thank you, ma'am. It'll take more than 4 posts to earn your keep. But you didn't whine. That's a start." Tobias nodded, unsure what else to say. His hands were still raw. His back ached. But it wasn't the labor that wore him down. It was the question that wouldn't let go of him. Why him? Why save a boy with no land, no kin, no future? Why spend $200 on a name no one remembered with pride? He tried to keep the question inside, but it came out anyway, quiet, unsure. "Ma'am?" "Why me?" Martha didn't answer right away. She reached for her coffee and stared out the window, watching the last of the day's light stretch across the hills. "You remind me of someone," she said at last. "Someone good." A pause. "Someone I lost." The words lingered, then disappeared into the space between them. Tobias swallowed. Still, that's a lot of money to spend on a reminder. She met his gaze now, and for the first time there was no steel in her eyes. Only exhaustion, maybe regret. "You think I bought you as a favor?" "I don't know," Tobias said honestly. "Maybe you felt sorry for me." Martha leaned back, her fingers wrapped around the warm ceramic of her mug. "I didn't buy you to feel good about myself, and I didn't save you to make you grateful. I bought time. Yours. Mine. Maybe for both of us to figure out what the hell we're still doing here." Tobias let the words settle. He wanted to believe her. Wanted to trust this place might be more than a prison with soft furniture. But he still didn't know what she wanted from him. He still didn't know what it meant to owe someone your life. And more than that, he didn't know who he was anymore, now that he no longer belonged to himself. That night, as he lay awake listening to the wind rattle loose shingles on the roof, Tobias thought of all the ways a person could be owned. By money, by guilt, by ghosts. And he wondered which of those had brought him here, and which he'd carry when the time came to leave. The hallway creaked beneath Tobias's bare feet as he moved through the upstairs of the house, candle in hand. Night had fallen hours ago, but sleep wouldn't come. The bed was soft, the blankets clean, but something in the walls, some heaviness in the air, refused to let him rest. He passed the same portraits again, but this time he stopped. In the soft, flickering light, the damage was even more unsettling. Faces had been gouged out, vicious, angry strokes across canvas that once held smiles, eyes, warmth. Now all that remained were warped, slashed features that looked more like warnings than memories. One frame had fallen slightly crooked. He reached up and adjusted it, not out of care, but instinct. The image behind the glass showed what was once a family father-mother, and a boy no older than he'd been when his own mother died. Only the boy's face had been scratched out completely. The father's eyes were gone too. But the mother, her face was untouched, still there, still staring straight ahead, still Martha. Tobias took a step back. He hadn't meant to intrude, but something about that picture made his chest tighten. The posture of the boy, the way he stood beside his mother, the angle of his shoulders, defiant, proud. It could have been him. It almost was. He made his way downstairs, drawn by the soft clink of porcelain. In the kitchen, Martha stood alone, pouring herself a cup of coffee despite the hour. She didn't flinch when she saw him, just nodded toward the other mug on the table. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. He shook his head and sat. The silence between them felt different this time, not heavy, but hollow, like two people standing at the edges of something they couldn't name. "Who was the boy in the picture?" he asked quietly. Martha's hands froze over her cup. She didn't look at him, not right away. "That was my son." Her voice was rougher now, like gravel under a wagon wheel. "His name was Daniel. He was 19 when he died." Tobias swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." She nodded once tightly. "The cliff out by East Trail. Horse spooked. They said it was an accident." "But you don't think so?" Martha's jaw tightened. Her gaze dropped to the steam curling from her mug. "I think," she said slowly, "that I wasn't the mother he needed. I kept him safe. Too safe. And when the time came for him to face something real, he didn't know how." Tobias said nothing. The pain in her voice was deeper than grief. It was guilt, old sharp and never dulled by time. "I scratched out their faces," she said after a long pause, "because I couldn't bear to look at them. Couldn't stand their smiles frozen in time, like they were still here, like they were judging me for surviving." He looked down at his hands. They were rough from the fence posts now. Split, raw, real. He wasn't Daniel. But in that moment he understood why she kept looking at him, like she was waiting for something that would never come back. And as the wind howled outside and the coffee cooled between them, Tobias realized this ranch wasn't just a home. It was a graveyard of memory. And he was the only living thing still moving through it. The fire had burned low in the hearth, casting long, flickering shadows across the kitchen walls. Tobias sat with both hands wrapped around his empty mug, the warmth long since faded. Across from him, Martha stared into the embers like they held something she'd lost long ago. Neither of them had spoken in a while. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, just full. Full of things left unsaid. Full of ghosts. "He was kind," Martha said suddenly, voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel, smart, gentle with animals, always asked questions. Drove his father mad." Tobias didn't reply. He just listened. "He wasn't built for this land," she continued. "Too soft, too clean. I used to think that was a good thing. That if I just protected him enough, he wouldn't have to learn how cruel the world could be." Her voice trembled, and for a moment Tobias saw something crack beneath her weathered exterior. Not weakness, just grief that had been held in too long. "We had a horse named Fiddle," she said with a faint smile. "Mean as a mule, temper like lightning. Danny tried to break him on his own. I told him not to, but he wanted to prove something." She paused. "The horse kicked him so hard he couldn't walk straight for a week. And still, he brought that damn animal sugar cubes every morning." She shook her head, eyes glassy. "He had this way of believing that everything could be good if you just treated it kindly enough." Tobias looked down at the table fingers, tracing invisible lines into the wood grain. "What happened on the trail?" he asked gently. Her face hardened just a little. Not in anger, but in pain. "His father sent him out to check the boundary fence," she said. "Routine work. We'd done it 100 times. But that day, something spooked the horse. No one saw it. Just tracks near the cliff and blood on the rocks." She drew a long, shaky breath. "I told myself it was the horse. That maybe he wasn't ready. That maybe I should have trained him harder. Let him struggle more, face things." Tobias didn't know what to say. Sometimes there weren't words big enough to hold a grief like that. "I buried what was left of him out past the oak grove," Martha whispered, "next to his father. But it never felt finished, like part of him never really went in the ground." She looked at Tobias then. Really looked at him. "You remind me of him. Not your face, your questions. The way you keep your pride tucked behind your teeth." He held her gaze, unsure what to do with the weight she'd just placed on him. "I'm not him," he said softly. "I know," she replied. "But maybe this time I won't fail." And just like that, the fire crackled louder, as if the house itself had stirred at her words. But Tobias couldn't shake a new unspoken fear. If part of Daniel had never been buried, then where had it gone? It was a few mornings later when Tobias noticed the third cross. He was mending a gate near the north field, hammer in hand, sweat clinging to the back of his neck, when something caught his eye beyond the fence line. Just past the oak grove where Martha said her son and husband were buried, stood a smaller wooden marker, weather-worn, crooked, almost hidden in the tall grass. He set his tools down, wiped his hands on his trousers, and made his way over. No name carved into the wood. No flowers. No stone. Just a scrap of rope tied around the top, frayed at the edges like it had been there too long. Something in his chest went tight. He hadn't known much peace since arriving, but now a colder feeling settled over him, one he couldn't name, one that whispered this grave wasn't meant to be remembered. Later that evening, over a quiet supper, he asked Martha about it. "I thought you only buried 2 out there," he said gently, careful not to sound like he was prying. Martha didn't look up from her plate. "That's right." He hesitated. "Then who's in the third grave?" Her fork stopped mid-air. The silence was thick alive. Then she set it down with a slow, deliberate motion. "You ask a lot of questions, Tobias. I only ask what doesn't make sense." She exhaled, long and weary. 3 men worked this ranch before you. One lasted 2 weeks. The next a month. The last one, almost 3. "What happened to them?" he asked. Her eyes flicked up, gray, steady, haunted. "They left." But something in her tone said otherwise. Tobias didn't press. But that night he walked out alone, past the barn, past the cattle, past the grove. He found the marker again. Still no name, still no answers. He knelt in the grass beside it and touched the wood. It was cold, even in the warmth of summer. A ranch that big should have had hired hands, maybe a dozen. But Martha worked it alone, always had. That's what the townsfolk whispered, and what Tobias had seen with his own eyes. So where had the others gone? A month here, 2 there, always vanishing. It wasn't just grief that haunted this land. It was silence. Silence too practiced, as if the walls had been trained not to speak. The next morning, Tobias asked for the ledger, said he wanted to understand the ranch's numbers, the expenses, the yield. Martha raised an eyebrow, but gave it to him. Inside were names, faded entries, and between the lines, dates that ended too soon. Carter Willis, Pete Jameson, Marcus Reed. 3 men, 3 ends. No explanations, no funerals, no justice, just names lost in ink. And as Tobias closed the book and stared out toward the third grave again, a chill climbed up his spine. Because now the question wasn't just who had died, but who had survived and what they'd become in the process. The storm rolled in just after dusk, slow and deliberate, like it had somewhere specific to be. Tobias stood at the window in the front room, arms crossed over his chest, watching the sky turn from slate to black. Lightning split the horizon, silent at first, then followed by a low, distant rumble that made the windows tremble in their frames. Behind him, the house felt smaller than usual, the walls tighter, the air heavier. Martha sat in her usual place by the fire, her knitting resting on her lap, untouched. She hadn't said much since the ledger. He hadn't either. There were some truths you didn't speak aloud, not because they weren't real, but because once they left your lips, they'd never fit back inside you the same way. Another crack of thunder rolled overhead, closer this time. "I think someone died here," Tobias said softly, still facing the glass. Martha didn't move. "I think someone didn't leave like you said." She looked into the fire, her voice low. "There are things I'd rather not remember." Tobias turned now, slow and careful. "Did you bury them?" Her eyes met his, calm, not defensive, but tired. "So very tired." "I buried what I could." Silence followed, not angry, not shocked, just still, like the space between heartbeats when something is about to change. Then she said, "It wasn't always like this." He nodded. "I believe you. There was laughter once, music. My husband played the fiddle. Daniel used to sing off key just to make me laugh." Her voice cracked at his name, but she didn't stop. They were good men, those boys who came after. They worked hard, didn't deserve what happened. What did happen? Tobias asked, barely a whisper. Martha shook her head. "I only know what I found. A body, a well, a trail of blood no one could explain. The sheriff came out once, maybe twice. Then he stopped returning my letters. Lightning lit up the entire room, followed quickly by a roar of thunder that shook the floor. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps on the front door. Martha stiffened, reached slowly for the rifle propped behind her chair. Her hand trembled not in fear, but recognition. A voice followed, muffled through the wood but firm. "Mrs. Caldwell, it's Sheriff Briggs. I need to come in." Martha didn't move. "How do I know it's you?" she called out. "Because I'm standing in a damn thunderstorm, and I'm too old to be playing games." Tobias moved to the door, unlocked it slowly, and opened it. The sheriff stepped inside, drenched and grim. He looked at Martha first, then Tobias. "I found something today," he said, pulling a leather satchel from beneath his coat. "Something I think you both need to see." And as he laid the contents out on the kitchen table, bone cloth, silver, and a photograph, the storm outside wasn't half as loud as the truth that was about to thunder into their lives. The photograph lay flat on the kitchen table, damp at the edges from the sheriff's rain-soaked coat, but clear enough. Tobias stared at it, throat dry. The face in the image was wild-eyed, bearded, dirt-streaked, but unmistakably human. And hauntingly familiar. Martha didn't move. Her fingers hovered just above the picture, trembling not with surprise, but with something far worse. Recognition. "That's Daniel," she whispered. "That's my son." Sheriff Briggs nodded. "Taken 2 days ago, about 10 miles south of here. He's been living out in the hills rough alone, but not harmless." He reached into the satchel again and pulled out a bundle of objects wrapped in cloth. A silver ring, a pocket knife, bits of torn fabric, each piece a fragment of the men who'd come to this ranch and never left. "He's not the boy you buried," Briggs said gently. "He never went over that cliff. Somehow he survived, and something in him didn't come back whole." Martha sat down slowly, her hands clasped in her lap. Her face had gone pale, but her voice was steady. "I prayed for a miracle," she said. "I lit candles. I dreamed of him walking through that door again. But I never imagined." She looked up. Not at Briggs, not at the photo. At Tobias. "I brought you here because I couldn't let go of him. Because I thought maybe if I shaped someone new, I could silence what I'd lost." Tobias felt something shift in his chest. Not fear, not pity. Something older. Something like grief shared. Outside, thunder cracked again. But it was the footsteps on the porch that made all 3 of them freeze. Slow, measured, coming closer. Sheriff Briggs stood, hand resting on the grip of his revolver. Tobias stayed seated. Martha rose almost against her own will, moved toward the rifle by the door, picked it up with both hands. Then came the voice, muffled, raw. "Ma." 1 word. That's all it took to unravel the years between them. Martha swayed slightly, her eyes closed. "It's him," she said, voice breaking. Briggs stepped forward. "Martha, he's dangerous. You know that." She nodded. She opened the door slowly. Rain poured in, and standing there, soaked and skeletal, was the boy she thought she'd buried. His eyes were sunken, his jaw sharp with hunger, and something else. But they were still her son's eyes. They met hers full of something broken and ancient. No one moved. And in that silence, the storm seemed to hush. Martha lifted the rifle. Tobias held his breath. "Daniel," she said softly, "I need you to tell me the truth." He didn't answer, just took one step forward, then another. And she had to choose. Between the boy she once raised and the man he'd become. Between blood and mercy. And as the storm gathered its final breath above them, so did Martha Caldwell, ready at last to face the ghost she never truly lost. The storm broke just before dawn. Rain softened into mist, and the sky, though still dark, held a shade of blue that hinted at morning. The house stood silent, still standing, still breathing. Inside, the fire had burned low again, and the three of them, Tobias, Martha, and the sheriff, sat at the kitchen table. No one spoke. No one had to. Daniel was gone. Not dead, at least not in the way Tobias had feared. But not the boy Martha once rocked to sleep either. He'd left with the sheriff, hands bound, eyes distant, quiet. And Martha had let him go. Not with rage, not with tears, but with the kind of pain that makes a person older in the space of a single heartbeat. "I thought losing him once was the worst thing that could happen to me," she said finally, her voice barely more than breath. "Turns out, letting him live with what he's become is harder." Tobias didn't answer. He just sat with her in the quiet like she'd done for him so many nights before. "You don't owe me anything," she said after a while, eyes still on the window. "You've done more than enough." He looked at her, then really looked. At the woman who once paid a fortune for a broken boy at an auction block. At the mother who buried one son and faced another with a rifle in her hands. At the rancher who survived love loss and silence. And kept going. "I'm not leaving," he said. She turned to him slowly, something uncertain flickering in her expression. "You don't have to stay out of guilt." "I'm not." Then, why he hesitated, then said, "Because somewhere along the way, this place became mine too. Not by blood, not by price, but by choice." Her lips trembled just slightly. And for the first time since he arrived, she reached across the table, not to command, not to guide, but to hold. His hand fit awkwardly into hers, calloused to calloused, to tired. And in that quiet moment, nothing needed to be explained. Not the past, not the hurt, not even the love, raw and unfinished as it was. Because family wasn't always something you were born into. Sometimes it was something you rebuilt, piece by painful piece, among the ruins. And as the sun finally broke across the hills and warmed the porch with golden light, Tobias stepped outside, not as a boy bought and borrowed, but as a man who had chosen to belong. And somewhere behind him, Martha Caldwell poured 2 mugs of coffee. One for herself, and one she no longer had to drink alone. Some families are born in blood. Others are built in silence and healing piece by piece. If you were Tobias, standing before a woman who bought you with grief and kept you with quiet hope, would you stay or walk away to find the man you were meant to be? I'd love to hear your choice. Let me know in the comments below. Sometimes your answer might echo exactly what someone else needed to hear. If this story stayed with you, give it a like to share it further. And hit subscribe so you won't miss the next journey, another tale from the Old West where justice wears many faces and not all ghosts stay buried. Thank you for staying with us until the very end.